Welcome to lesson 12, everyone. I'm so glad that you made it here. In this lesson, we'll be talking about how the normal random variable z handshakes with the chi-square distribution. There's a close relationship between the z and the chi-square. You will see that when we perform a square of the standard normal distribution z square, it actually transforms to the chi-square. We will cover the in graphical intuition, the theoretical intuition, and its derivation will be covered in detail, and it will be made easy for all of us to follow. Now, this particular lesson, lesson 12 and lesson 13, are basically two prerequisites which we would be covering before we jump into the residual sum of squares expression found in the linear regression models. Now, the book Elements of Statistical Learning has simply stated the residual sum of squares expression, and it eventually states that the RSS expression adheres to the chi-square random variable. But to really conclusively understand and prove that, it's important that you get a hold of these two prerequisites. So, yes, let's get started. Yes. Let's start with stating the standard normal variable. So, you may have read it in your books on probability, or even if not in that particular field, you would have seen it in action in so many places. It's commonly known as the bell curve. Again, very common, may have seen it in high school. This is a distribution where many things in the world around us takes shape. The standard normal variable is denoted symbolically as n, meaning normal, with a mean of 0 and variance of 1. So it has a mean of 0. You can see that the peak aligns with 0. It has a variance of 1, not stated here, but just for you to understand. And this is how the density curve looks like, right? Let's get to the next slide for some more details. Now, z can take negative, 0, and positive values. When we square z, so here you can see the negative values, 0 and positive. But when we square them, basically you won't have anything negative after squaring. It all becomes 0 or positive. So basically, whatever resultant distribution you expect, it's going to be one sided in nature, right? Now, this is just a rough approximation. The x axis is not drawn to scale. We will derive a mathematically precise expression in the next slides, proving why there is an equivalence. So the graph you'll get, the probability density which you will get is will be one-sided. And when we actually pick up the chi-square distribution graph, this graph can take many shapes depending on the degrees of freedom. uh, Even the chi-square distribution is one-sided. You can see on the x-axis it starts with 0 and goes all the way to positive infinity. There is no negative value here. So yes, definitely by squaring you arrive at a one-sided right-tailed distribution, and I think that's leading us to the hints of why this is chi-square. Let's start with the mathematical derivation in the next slide. Let's now derive precisely why z square becomes chi-square. First of all, when we perform the transformation z square, let's do a simple substitution. Let v be equal to z square. This will keep things visually simple, and also note that v is the value which the transformed random variable z square can take on the x-axis, right? We will state a very simple and a very useful technique which almost all probability books state. Whenever we have to find the probability density function of a transformed variable, we kind of leverage and utilize the cumulative distributions. So I know this looks like a lot of text, but let's state things very simply. On the left hand side, when you see this expression, you have the cumulative distribution, probability of v being less than a value v. So this is the cumulative distribution. I think, again, nothing really extraordinary about it. How does it look like when it comes to the integral? So you're dealing with a continuous distribution, so you will get integral calculus over there. The corresponding expression will be the density function integral from minus infinity to the value v. This is just the standard, most basic formula of the cumulative probability distribution. Nothing extraordinary about it. There's no derivation here. Now, when you perform this integral on the left hand side, you get the cumulative distribution at the value v, capital FV minus the cumulative distribution at minus infinity, which is still equal to the probability of the random variable being less than value v. Again, this is nothing but the expansion of the above integral and pretty standard cumulative distribution stuff. We know from probability axioms that the cumulative distribution at minus infinity is zero because it's at minus infinity. There's no data point there on the left hand side of minus infinity, so there's no height to the probability density function, so it becomes zero. What you get is a simplified expression. The simplified expression is the cumulative distribution V is equal to the probability of capital V, the random variable, less than the value small v which it can take. Now, you might feel that, all right, I knew this. Why did I need to derive it, all the way from this point, using calculus and getting here? We may have just stated symbols, but no, that's not the case. What we can now do is note, if you perform the derivative on both sides of this expression, or rather, you can perform derivative on both sides of this expression, uh, you can get back the density function v. So, if I perform a derivative on the cumulative distribution, capital FV, so the derivative capital FV with respect to V gives back to us, the probability density functions. And this is the technique which you will see in action in the next slide. So step one, you calculate the cumulative distribution of the random variable V. This can be any random variable. Step two, differentiate the cumulative distribution function by V and obtain the density. This is just simple calculus in action. So again, we've just stated where we left off in the previous slide. So you start with the probability of the random variable being less than the scalar value v. You put back the expression of v, which is equal to z squared. So probability of z squared being less than v. Now, whenever you have a square term being less than a particular scalar, when you perform the square root, you get a positive root under root v and you get a negative root. So for z squared to be less than v, z, please note there's no square on this. Now you've taken a square root on the whole expression. We get this nice inequality. So z is less than the positive square root of v, and z is more than the negative square root of v. So we basically want to calculate the probability that z will be residing between the two respective square roots. Also note that the normal curve is symmetric, and in the next slide we will utilize some properties of it being symmetric and further simplify this expression. The first line is where we left off in the previous slides, and this is the diagram which we'll use for our reference. We want to calculate the cumulative distribution of the random variable v. Now, we're going to state four expressions which you see below. They may look complicated, but they're not really complicated. Keep in mind the right hand side for all of these four lines is the same. So we're basically using one expression and connecting it to what we really want, right? So let's get started. Now, the z normal random variable lies between the negative square root and the positive square root. We proved that in the previous slide that this is equivalent to the cumulative distribution of v. Now, if you look at the symmetry of this graph, we can further simplify this in terms of the cumulative distribution of the z normal random variable. Note this subscript here, z. The capital F basically means this is the cumulative distribution of z, nothing else. Okay. Now, if we recall the cumulative distribution definition is the so f under root v is basically the probability of the random variable to occur from the values minus infinity to the positive square root. So it's this whole thing on the left, including the tail part. And what is f said minus under root v? It starts from the minus under root v point all the way to the tail part, right? Now, what happens when we subtract both of these cumulative distributions? You get the center middle part. Okay, so what you've basically done is that you have connected your calculation to the known cumulative distribution of z. So now you know it. and life is going to become simple for us because now we can connect our target expression with something which we know. So let's look at the left hand side. Coming back to the left hand side, we see that the inequality can be written as this more concise inequality which we have seen in the previous slide. So this is equivalent to z squared being less than v. Again, let's go a notch further. We substitute back z squared with the value v. So what do you get? You get the probability of the transformed random variable being less than v. And what is this expression which you're looking at? This expression is nothing but the cumulative distribution of V. Note the subscript. It's not Z, it's V. So you have the cumulative distribution of V now connected with some expressions related to the cumulative distributions of Z. So you just one step away from calculating the cumulative distribution of V. And again, we are just one step away from step two, where we'll actually perform the differentiation and get the PDF, which you'll see in the next slide. The first line is where we left off in the previous slide, and we will use this to perform the subsequent steps. Now, all these equations may look like a lot, but it's actually pretty simple. This is part of the step one, step two process, which we discussed in just a few slides prior. Now, as you can see on the left-hand side, we do have the cumulative distribution expression with us. And on the right-hand side, we have a cumulative distribution expression in terms of the z, normal random variable. So left, we do not know. The right, we know because, we have an idea of how the density and the cumulative function look like. So what do we do? If we differentiate this whole expression, if we differentiate the cumulative distribution, we get back the density. So you perform a derivation, you perform a differentiation with respect to v. So as you can see, the LHS is getting differentiated and correspondingly the RHS is also getting differentiated. Now, when you perform your usual chain rule calculus, chain rule differentiation, so on the left you get the probability density function of the random variable v. This is what we are actually looking for. And on the right hand side, you can see, just via simple chain rule, the capital FC becomes the density function fz under root v. And when you propagate the differentiation to the under root, you get 1 by 2 under root v. And similarly, we perform the same differentiation on this expression. The minus sign also comes out and minus minus becomes plus. So what now, the expression is even more simpler because we don't have to deal with a very complicated cumulative distribution of z. You can just state the density function of z, which we all know and we'll just discuss in a second. So now, I think the next step should be that we substitute for the function. We actually write the function for the density function of z. But before that, let's look at the density function itself. Now, if we have a random normal variable x, it's a standard normal random variable x. This is how this very famous distribution function looks like. 1 by under root 2 pi e raised to power minus x squared by 2. In our case, x will become under root v and minus under root v. So we are just using this formula, and in our case, fz will take in the function input of minus under root v for the second expression and under root v for the first expression. Now, when we use the standard normal variable formula which we stated here, you just try it by hand. It's a simple application of the formula when we pass under root v and minus under root v. So we are reusing this expression, we are using the formula for the standard normal variable, and then we just use that formula and simplify our expression. As you can see, both the first and the second expression technically become same because the standard normal distribution function is it's always positive and there's a square being applied. So our negative under root v and under root v both square up. So what you get is this right hand side final expression. Let's look into it, what this means. So after the simplification which we perform, we get our final expression. Now, this is clearly not the standard normal probability density function. It has the exponent and it has the random variable also as a polynomial. So what you are actually looking for is a very specific form of the gamma distribution, which is also known as the chi-square distribution. Since we know that this is a specific form of the chi-square distribution, which we have just calculated by hand, we can conclusively prove that v, which is z square, becomes a chi-square random variable. This particular chi-square random variable, which comes out of squaring a standard normal variable, has 1 degree of freedom. That's just something which you would learn in more advanced courses of probability, but just keep in mind that z square becomes a chi-square random normal variable with 1 degree of freedom. So pat yourself on the back. Congratulations. You have really understood, not just the approximate graphical intuition, how z squared becomes x squared. We discussed how it becomes a one-sided curve. And then you also derived by hand the probability density function of z squared, which was nothing but the chi-square probability density function in 1 degree of freedom. So great job. You know z square is chi square. If you like this video, please hit us a like, subscribe, or a comment. And see you in the next lesson when we discuss the second prerequisite